Hello, I'm Chuck Phillip with South Alabama Home Inspections, and welcome to another edition of Southern Home Talk. This is on deck building basics and tips, episode 52. Also hit the subscribe button if you want to stay updated, because pretty much what we're doing is every video we're putting up is strictly focused to just the issues we face right here in South Alabama. And so I figured we would go ahead and put one up on decks because we do a lot of deck inspections, and usually we find a lot of problems with them, and sometimes even the brand new ones that are built, are usually not built to code and can really create safety problems down the road as a result. And so we're going to go over some of this, and it's not going to be everything that you need to know, but it'll be some of the basics things that you need to look out for, and also general maintenance tips as well. Your deck doesn't have to be this big to be enjoyable. Pretty much here in Alabama, the best way to enjoy the great outdoors, certain times of the year, of course, is with a deck. There's so much you can do with them, but it's important that you maintain them because of the environment that we're in. It's really brutal. And so hopefully some of these tips that we give you on how to keep your deck up will help you. If you're having a new deck built, make sure that it's properly ledgered to the wall itself. And this is something I run into quite frequently. And usually what I find is there may be just one bolt here, and then it may go another 4 or 5 feet, another bolt. And really it should be kind of staggered. This one hasn't been done that way, but this is still kind of sort of acceptable since it's 2 bolts per every 24 inches. It's a little bit subjective, but it should at the minimum be staggered lag bolted down the entire structure, preferably within 16 inches of each lag. And also it's important to use the right type of lag. Sometimes I use just regular steel, and this will rust. And really the better practice is to use hot dip galvanized for both the bolt and the washer. And also the joist hangers should be hot dip galvanized as well, because sometimes I find that these are steel and they're almost completely rusted out. One other issue that's really not so much an issue for this particular deck, since it's 25 years old and it's got the old CCA treated lumber, but I do recommend counterflashing underneath this with this new lumber. I just don't think it's as good as the old CCA treated. And also going back to these joist hangers, the reason why these are kind of important, I also find them missing on most of the new decks that are being built, is it's probably okay as soon as the deck is fabricated, but what happens is over time this wood starts getting weak, and so do the fasteners. And so this is the reason why joist hangers should be put there to help keep the deck together, over this weakening process that happens over the years. And deck failures are pretty common, and people get hurt and killed, every year from that. Another safety tip is to make sure that the balusters or spindles are spaced no further than 4 inches away. And this is for safety. And also another tip, if you have a lot of balusters you need to put up, what I recommend doing is going and buying 2x4/8 and cutting them in half. And then you can split each one down the center if you got a table saw. And so you can pretty much get 4 balusters out of one 2x4/8. So that's figured I'd give you that little tip just in case you have a whole bunch of them you got to put up. Most treated lumber is not rated for ground contact, so anytime you have treated lumber making ground contact like you see in this photograph, it's just a matter of time before it starts rotting, unless it's marine grade. And even some marine grade treated lumber can rot. It just depends on how well it was treated at the plant. Also, your stairs that are coming down, make sure they rest on a platform, preferably a concrete pad. In this case, it's a sidewalk. And there's 2 reasons really for that. One, it prevents a tripping hazard, but also it prevents the lumber from rotting. Like I said earlier, most lumber is not rated for ground contact, and so as a result it'll rot over time. If you got staircases that go up probably more than 4 or 5 feet high off the ground, really the better practice is to have risers between each stair going up. This is really more for safety than anything else. I would say most of the decks I inspect have this type of handrail, and that's where they've used 5/4 radius edge boards to make the handrail itself. even these contractors are doing this, and it's not right, and it's not a defect, but really what it is, it's a safety hazard because these handrails are not graspable. So if you were to slip and fall, either going up the stairs or down the stairs, it's kind of hard to grasp this wide board. And so that's why whenever I do an inspection, I simply mark this up as a safety hazard. 5/4 radius edge is okay to use for general railing around the deck, and it even makes a pretty good top plate. You just don't want to use this where it needs to be graspable, like on the stairs going down. If your deck's going to have any kind of height to it, I recommend cross bucking the ends. This will keep a lot of the lateral sway out of the deck, and it really should be done to both ends. Got a shed built on the far end of this one here, so this is actually working as a cross buck. One of the problems with decks is it puts a lot of shade under it, and as a result, any kind of vegetation down below starts to die, just leaving soil. And then what can happen is this water can come through the decking up here, and over time will start eroding away all this soil structure under the deck. And so what I recommend to stop this is to put number 4 size ballast down here. This can be purchased by the truckload. When I'm out inspecting decks, sometimes I'll run across painted ones like you see in this photograph. And what happens is if you paint over rotted wood, it'll start flaking off the top coat, which you can barely see in this right side of the photograph. But what contributes to this is allowing debris to pile up on the deck, especially leaves. It'll hold moisture back to it, and it really doesn't take a whole lot of time to start rotting the lumber. And that's regardless if it's treated or not, it can still do that. So the best practice is just not allow debris to pile up anywhere on the deck. Always keep it cleared off. Due to the large amount of rainfall we get, really the best practice to protect your lumber is to allow some spacing between each board. And really the closer it is to the ground, the further the spacing should be. You know, really this kind of spacing really would be good at any height. You'll find that the boards will last a lot longer because they're actually able to get some circulation around them to dry out and not stay so damp all the time. Another thing I recommend is to have several, if not many, of these carpenter bee traps. Unfortunately, the treated wood we have now is not as resilient, I guess is a better word to say, as the old CCA treated wood, which was pretty much stopped production on that in the late 90s. And so the old CCA, which stood for copper, chromium, arsenic, you know, it's now missing the arsenic component of that. And so now carpenter bees have no problem getting into this new treated wood. And I just find that this new treated wood is not nowhere near as resilient as the old. And so you really need to take measures to protect it from carpenter bees. And the most effective way I've found so far to do that is with these carpenter bee traps. And I have probably about 6 of these set around the deck structure. So it's really going to depend on how big your deck is, but I recommend putting as many of these out as you possibly can. One of the best products I've used so far has been Ready Seal. I've had a deck for about 25 years now, and I've tried a lot of different products on it. And so far, this has been the best one. I applied this on my deck back in 2017, and it's still holding up fairly good. I'm probably going to have to redo it in the next couple of months, but that's been a pretty good longevity considering the wet climate that we're in. The best time of year to refinish your deck, and that's whether you're going to use Ready Seal or any other product, is really during the fall. That's pretty much the only time we actually get any kind of dry weather. And so what I recommend doing is the day it rains, we do get a few rainy days in the fall time, maybe more than a few, is the day it rains or the day after it rains. That's the time you want to take and power wash your deck and really get it as clean as you possibly can, and hopefully having about a week or maybe even more of forecasted dry weather. So after, let's say you got 2 weeks of dry weather scheduled ahead of the rain, I would wait all the way up as long as I could to maybe 2 or 3 days before it's supposed to rain again, and that would be the time I would apply my new deck sealer. So that's just a really good tip to follow right there. About the fall is about the only time we're going to get any kind of dry weather to do this in. You can build a deck pretty much any time of the year, but I think probably the best time to build one is during the springtime. That way all this lumber can dry out so you can go ahead and put your protective coating on it in the fall. Thanks for taking the time to watch this live presentation. I'm Chuck Phillip with South Alabama Home Inspections. And if you need a deck inspection, crawl space, attic, or even do general home condition inspections as well, just give us a call at area code 251-490-9892. But also please subscribe to the channel because we're constantly putting up videos about the issues that affect our houses right here in the Deep South. Thanks for watching.